Hello and welcome to this improvised, hopefully kind of quick video that I was thinking about making. I actually had a different video in mind, but I decided that I had to put my thoughts in order about my writing aspect of my life, and I thought maybe I can bring you along with me and we can figure it out together, hopefully. If you watch my previous video, you will know that I had this writing project that I was working on and that I decided to drop it for the time being because I was just not feeling it. If you want to know more about this book and why it was just not working at the moment for me, you can watch that video. But in case you're new to my channel, my name is Marina and I'm a storytelling teacher and an aspiring author that likes to write and also suffers from it because writing is hard and because life gets in the way a lot of the time. So I really like talking about books, reading and writing, everything book related. I also love any kind of storytelling form, such as video games, cinema, TV shows, every kind of thing that you could think of, and really anything that contains a story or has anything to do with a story, because stories are amazing and they are the vehicle for our lives. Okay, so first of all, what is the project that I just dropped and why I dropped it? Like I said, if you want to know more, you can watch the other video, but just briefly to introduce it in this one. This was a contemporary fiction that was meant to be a short-ish novel around 70,000, 80,000, I was gonna say dollars, but no, it's words, 80,000 words. This was called Project Toxic, and it was about the toxic friendship between two young women and how it evolves over the years and how one of the characters, the main character in our POV, faces recovering from this friendship and how to make new friendships after being scarred by this. And that was very cool. It was a project that I was very excited about and I started off really well, but I think there was a series of issues that made me just not connect with it so much anymore, and I was trying to force it, but in the end it became clear that it was just not the right time for that project, and I will pick it up at some point, hopefully. But I stopped around the mark of 30,000, 40,000 words. And it was two different timelines, so it was not an exact moment of the plot. I was working in both timelines at the same time. I'm just gonna leave it there because I don't want to make this video about that project because there is already a dedicated video, but also because I want to talk about more the new project and the situation that arises after dropping that first one. For the record, that is not my first project. I have finished one fantasy novel that is set in Sweden and it involves elemental magic and blah blah blah, and that one is currently on submission. It's been on submission for a while, so I've decided that I want to focus on new projects in case that one doesn't end up going anywhere, because I think it's important to move forward and not get too stuck in the past, especially with something like a first book where basically all you're doing is learning the craft, and now I know a lot more about the way I work and the way I write. And I already feel with the new projects that I've been kind of testing and playing around with that things are very different. Everything is a lot more straightforward. The process is a lot, not easier because it's not an easy thing to do, but it does feel like there is less detours and you kind of start to know what you're doing. Not that you become a perfect writer after one project or one book, but practice helps a lot. So what about this new project? I am super excited about it, and I think that's the most important thing. And I probably would define it as a fantasy with multiple POV. It involves a found family. It has damaged characters that try and solve their issues together. And I would call the plot pretty mission-based. But I don't want to say anything else because I think I work best when I keep the details to myself, because otherwise I get very influenced by other people's opinions. So I think this is probably enough for you to have an idea of the type of book or the style of book that I want to write. So because I just come from dropping off a project which feels like a little bit of a failure, and I guess it is like a project, not a project, but like a process failure, I want to have a different approach with this new book. I am a discovery writer, which means that I don't really have a plan or an outline before I start writing the actual manuscript. I do have vague ideas. I do always have something that is very clear, either a character or a bunch of characters, a world where the story is set. I usually know the beginning and the ending and some of the things that happen in the middle, but I don't really plan because my favorite way of writing is to discover the story myself as I'm writing it and not think about it beforehand and define it beforehand and then try and write it, because I find that quite boring. I find that it's very non-interesting to me to try and write something that I've already told myself. It's kind of like reading someone else's book and then trying to write the same thing, which actually, now that I think about it, it's probably a very good exercise to practice writing and storytelling. Which is, I should take notes of that. But that's not what I want to do with this. I want to make my own original thing. So I don't know, I just kind of lose interest when things are not fresh and new. And yeah, that does happen. I was talking about it in a different video, but I do feel like it's boring with the first draft if I already know what's gonna happen. For some reason, after draft 1 has been written, I'm happy to keep working and rewriting and changing everything and editing and doing things with that material. It's just a draft 1 kind of thing. I don't know, man. This is just the way I am. Everybody has quirks. This is one of my many quirks, I suppose. But this time I decided that I'm gonna plan a little bit more. I have tried to plan plots in a more detailed kind of way. That doesn't work. So this time what I decided to focus on is something that I find very interesting, which is character. I love these characters that I thought of. I have 5 so far, 5 main characters that will have a POV at some point, and I'm dedicating time to slowly develop what they're like, what their motivations are, what's their backstory, not their front story, if that's a word or a concept, but with where they come from, because the front story we can figure it out as we go. We can figure out together, the characters and me. And that's a difference with other of my previous projects, because I tend to focus a lot on the world and the world building, or maybe in the events, or just the one character, and focus a lot on their backstory and their motivations and their arc and everything, but not so much on different people. And I was thinking that because they are 5 people that interact with each other plus a bunch of secondary characters, it's inevitable that this one's arc is going to have an effect on this one's arc, or their dialogue is going to have an effect on the third person if they are all together in the same mission, in the same adventure. So I'm hoping that works out. Of course, right now it's working wonderfully, and I don't know if that is because this way of doing it like just matches the way I create, or because at the beginning, in the honeymoon phase with your new novel, you're always going to be super excited and you're always going to love everything about it. But I'm finding that threading the plot through the characters' relationships is feeling exciting, and it's feeling like it makes the whole thing make sense. And it is a different thing to the ones I usually do. And you know, if something's not working, why not try a different way? I'll keep you updated. So what challenges do I face with this new project? I'm very busy at the moment. As I mentioned before, I'm a teacher, and besides that, I have another office job that I do. And I when it's correction time, I have a lot of extra work that I have to do. Sometimes it bleeds into my spare time. Like right now, for example, instead of like filming this video, I should be correcting a bunch of assignments and exams, but that's okay. We'll do it very quickly and then we get to work. Another issue that I've been finding is that after a bit of a chaotic series of unfinished projects that hopefully I will return to, but you know, it's been a few now that I start with in a very excited way and then kind of start drifting apart from, and then finally drop them for the foreseeable future. I love my projects very much, and I don't really believe in just chucking them in the bin, because I don't think they're bad. I think they're good. I just don't think, obviously, because I'm creating them, they have problems and they're not perfect, but I am happy to work on them sometime. I don't know if that's gonna happen because I don't have a billion years that I can dedicate to working on all of these ideas that I have, but I do have the ideas, and I do have a lot of basic work that I've done in a lot of them. The issue with dropping this many projects in the last year or 2 years or so is that the confidence is not thriving at the moment. I don't tend to sulk in this kind of thing, like, oh my goodness, I dropped so many projects, I'm such a project dropper, I'm a quitter, I'm a failure. But it does make you feel a little bit like subconsciously like you can't finish anything. And so I want to try and finish something, even if it's a shorter kind of project. This one I'm thinking is definitely a standalone, and even though it's fantasy, so it will probably be longer than, for example, the previous novel that I was working on. I think it's definitely gonna get to the 100,000 words and probably surpass it. But you know, I feel like I could really use some completion. I could really use starting a project, finishing it, and getting at least to draft 2 or 3 and being happy with the result, even if it doesn't get sent or queried or anything like that. I just want to complete something and feel proud of it. Another thing is I want to write something that I truly enjoy writing and that I would truly enjoy reading, because the previous project, the toxic one, because the themes were a bit meh and it was a bit dark and a bit depressing, I was not enjoying the process a lot, and that's why I think I started like postponing it and procrastinating it, because I was just not happy. I was just not feeling joy in the moment in the writing that I was doing. But with this one, I already feel like I'm a huge fan of the characters, and I'm like intrigued about what's gonna happen, so that's a good thing. I think it's important to be a fan of your own story, because if you're not interested, who is going to be? One last thing that I was even wondering if I should mention or not is that I have this ongoing insecurity about the projects that I create not being complex enough, and because I read a lot of books and I hear a lot of other creators that talk about their plots and how rich their worlds are and the world building and how everything is very intricate, and there's a lot of plots and subplots and different arcs and different characters, and I think I have a tendency to simplify all of these aspects, and that makes me feel a little bit insecure about my own creations and how it would be better if it was more complex. And I want to think about this in 2 different ways to try and solve this issue. First of all, I think not everything needs to be super complicated and have a ton of layers and be super intricate and be impossible to understand. I think different books for different moments and for different people and for different tastes. And the other thing is, I think I'm probably being my own enemy here and telling myself that my projects are not complex enough, or they are not, or they're too basic, or they're too like surface level or too simple. And I reckon if somebody read them, they would probably tell me that that's not true, because we tend to be more like harsh on ourselves than we are on others. And so I want to try and push this thought and this insecurity aside, because I think it's just not doing me any favor. And so these are the challenges. So I thought about some solutions, and these are them. First one's taking it easy. If there's days like today where I'm busy and I cannot write, I just won't write, and that's okay. And there will soon be times where I'm less busy and I have more time to dedicate to it. And if you're struggling with the same kind of thought and the same kind of stress, this also goes for you. Don't worry about it. 10 words a day is a good amount of words, and if you can't write today, you can write tomorrow, and it's perfectly fine. If you're not a professional author and you're not on deadline, you're doing what you can. You're doing something incredible, which is combining a very demanding hobby or very demanding passion with the rest of the logistics of life. So good on you for doing it. And don't bash yourself if you are not able to always meet your possibly very unrealistic expectations about your writing, because I feel like that seems like a common thing that happens among us writers. This kind of links to the next thought that I had about taking the time to fall in love with the project, because I think a lot of the times what I do is I get very excited at the beginning, and then I lose that excitement, and then I drop the project, and then obviously it's harder to fall back in love with it, because I initially didn't even have this like strong connection with it. I probably just didn't bond with it as much as I should have, and I think it just makes it easier to just forget about it and focus on something else. This time I want to take it slowly and make sure that I know these people to their core, and I know what I want to happen, and I know how I want it to happen without plotting it so much that I get bored. But, you know, exploring the plotter identity a bit more than I usually do. Another thing that I want to do is to avoid writing just for the sake of it if I don't have anything interesting to say, because I have a bad tendency to sometimes think I have to write, and because I have to write, I'm just going to sit down and I'm just going to type words. And most of the time those words are not that good, and they don't make any sense, and they are impossible to fit into the story, or they just are bad quality because I'm just forcing it and pushing it just so that I can tick the day in the calendar and just like complete that 30-day challenge or whatever it is that I'm doing. I don't want to do that, because I think that makes me get burnt out with the project, and I think it's damaging in the long run. And the last one is to save the little pockets of time when they emerge, and if the moment happens where I'm really thinking about this project and loving it so much, I feel like I should just like maybe sneakily give it the time, even if then I have to correct for another hour afterwards. Because yesterday, for example, I was early to an appointment, very unlike me, very out of character actually. And I decided to go into a cafe and just have a quick coffee. And when I was gonna pick up my phone and watch some YouTube, I decided to instead get my notebook and do a bit of character development. And that was so much fun. It was actually incredibly fun. I think it was just 10 minutes because then after that I already had to go. But it was very, very valuable. I really liked everything that I came up with in those 10 minutes, and maybe even the pressure of having a specific time frame that I had available for that actually really helped me to focus and to just do it and then go and forget about it, and it didn't even steal any time from my responsibilities and my busy endeavors that I have at the moment. So that's all for today. I don't think it was as short as I intended because I'm me and I ramble, and if you've been around, you know this about me, and I always accidentally lie when I say that it's gonna be a short video because I do want it to be short, but here we are. And of course I haven't taken a single sip of my tea yet. Thank you so much for listening to me talk about books, and I will see you next time.